right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We've got University of Miami legend, Detroit Lions defensive back legend, Mr. Bennie Blades. Bennie, how's everything going?
It's going great down here in, well, I can't say balmy, sunny South Florida.
Are people being responsible down there now? I know those cases
No.
are way up.
Look, are you serious?
I see you right here with the thing hanging off.
Look. Hey, look, you see, even when I went to go turn the lights on,
Yeah.
I got a park full of people out here. I fuss every day about wearing your mask. You see, I put my mask on to go turn the lights on.
Yeah.
When I come back to the office, I take it off. They're not afraid of coronavirus, but I'm definitely afraid of it. I've had 5 people that I've known since childhood who's passed away.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, early 50s. And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
It's wild. I don't know if it's because I know the governor of Florida really hasn't really kind of clamped down. I know they were kind of getting on him because a lot of other states. It's wild.
Well, his whole thing is he wants to open up schools and have the kids go back to the schools. But let me tell you something. I work a little bit in the school system.
Yeah.
Okay? And we've already had 3 adults who's tested positive for the coronavirus. And there's no kids there. So can you imagine the kids are running around? I'm like, look, let's just keep schools closed until the end of the school year. Till the end of, this year. We try it again in January. If the numbers are still high, then you keep it closed for another month. Let's let this thing die down to where I shut down my youth league program that I'm in charge of.
Yeah.
I tell people, if one kid gets the virus on my watch, that's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, and the thing is, the thing I keep thinking about is, there's a lot of kids that really rely on school because maybe they don't have the best wireless internet in their house, so they couldn't do school, or they didn't rely on the school lunches. Maybe just let them be able to go there, get their lunches, do school online, and do that.
Right.
But the way I see it is, if I know how bad I was growing up in school, and how I didn't listen, and I didn't talk, and I wasn't doing anything. Middle school, I was in the office almost every other day because I talked more than the teacher did. But I know how hard it is to control a classroom. I can't imagine how hard it is to control a classroom when you have to see and make sure every kid has a mask on. I don't know how you do that.
No, look, like I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I don't know if you guys got the news up there, but it's been playing all over the news down here. They opened up the theme parks, Labor Day weekend.
I don't know why.
And you know how hard it was for those people. They kept saying, we tell them to put the mask on. They take 5 more steps, then they take it back off. People are going to just be irresponsible. They're going to do what they want to do. Because a lot of people think, oh, it's just the flu. Yeah, but the flu, it kills people, but not.
Flu goes away. Flu doesn't last 8 months.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I look, if you want to be irresponsible, just don't come around me. I come in my office and I close the door and you go, Bennie, I'll come out when you guys leave.
No, it's a wild world. It's a wild world we live in. So I have a question. So so did you always want to play at the U? Was it even called the U when you went there? When did it become the U?
No, it was the University of Miami back then. Okay. I really wanted to be a Michigan Wolverine because I loved the emphasis. I loved Coach Bo Schembechler. Okay. And I think the fatal mistake they made was bringing me up to Michigan in the middle of December. You can't bring a Florida kid and you're going to recruit him up to Michigan in the middle of December. I didn't care how much the bells and whistles, show me who I was on the Jumbotron. It's cold here. I'm ready to go back home.
Now, it's funny you say that because I remember they had I heard Deion Sanders on some podcast a while back, and apparently they said that Wisconsin recruited him. He goes, Wisconsin? You think I'm coming up to Wisconsin? Man, I'm Florida born and raised. I'm coming up to Wisconsin. Get out of here. No, I'm
telling you, it's those things. I mean, I tell people, if I wouldn't have had any other places to go, I probably would have went to Michigan and froze my butt off.
Yeah.
But Look, I think I chose Miami because of the peer pressure. I had just won the state track meet in the 400, and I turned and looked. Of course, my brother is up there, who was already at Miami. You had Eagles All-Pro Jerome Brown in the stands. You had Winston Moss, Alonzo Highsmith, Melvin Bratton. You had a who's who of the University of Miami echelon up in the stands, you know, cheering, UM. I was like, I ain't going to Miami. So when I win the race, they all bombard the track. You can't be on the track. No. They didn't care. They came on the track. Who was going to get those big guys off the track? And so, I mean, they chanted me all the way off the track. And my brother say, you know you can't go anywhere else. You got to come to Miami. And so that's how that whole thing played out. I ended up down in Miami. Because I mean, come on, you had Alonzo Highsmith, Melvin Bratton, JCP. You had so many guys who had so much talent. I was a running back coming out of high school.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yes. And so I didn't play defensive back until I got down to the University of Miami. And Jimmy Johnson said, hey, kid, you're an athlete. I'm moving you to the defensive side of the ball, and you're going to be my starting free safety. Enough said.
When did you meet Ray Lewis?
Well, I didn't meet Ray Lewis until I happened to come back. Okay? I mean, back then, if you were a University of Miami star, you came back to the University of Miami to give wisdom to the guys behind you. And so I happened to meet Ray on one of my visits back. You know, I mean, I had met Warren Sapp before Ray, because Warren used to always tell people, I'm coming to the University of Miami. Now, he's a defensive tackle. He says, I'm coming to Miami because that guy, Bennie Blades, I'm going to end up playing safety like him, man. The boy, look at he made playing safety fun. And so every time I see Warren, he tells that story. And so I'm like, look.
He's too big to play safety. He ain't playing safety.
I know, but look, when people see me, they says, there's no way you play safety. I was a 230-pound safety back then. And so, I mean, it's unheard of. But the University of Miami, even to this day, no matter what class you come from, we all consider each other family.
That's awesome.
You know, so it doesn't matter. You know, when me, Ray, Ed Reed, we all get together. You know, it's always a debate now. Whose class was better?
I have a question. Do you see the current Miami program getting back to those days or those early 90s, early 2000s teams? Do you think it's going to be a while?
Well, you know, you can never relive those days. You know, I tell people the game is just not shaped for that. If we can get back to just being mentioned in the same breath as the late 80s, early 90s, for me, that'd be good enough. Because I put, trust me, I have a nephew that's down there now. We put so much pressure on those kids down there, you know. And, you know, he just point blank told me. He says, Uncle Benny, it'll never be the same. Because you guys were able to just talk smack, and there was no flags being thrown. Because people, they feared us, but they also loved us in the same breath. And I tell people, that was the biggest dichotomy going. How can you love us and hate us in the same time?
Wow.
You know? And so that's why they'll never get back to those days, because people don't, they want to see Miami come back, but they really don't. Because the cockiness and the brash attitude that comes with that, they don't want to see that again. They just really don't.
Were you opposed to switching to safety from running back, or were you okay with it?
Anything that got you on the field. And I tell kids, you know, even in today's game, if a coach sees potential of you moving, move. Because it's about getting on the field. I mean, you can keep that, you know, attitude that, no, I'm going to be a running back, no, I'm going to be a quarterback. And you could be there 4 or 5 years and never touch the field because you don't want to move and switch positions. I tell people the greatest thing Alan Hearns did when he was at the University of Miami, he switched from receiver to defensive back, And now he's back in the NFL. He's back to receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do whatever's best for you to get on the field at that given time.
Is he doing better now? I know he had that bad injury a couple years ago.
Well, he had a bad injury, and now he actually, before the season began, he opted out of playing because he opted out because he's raising his younger brothers and sisters, and for him, getting sick is not an option.
It's not worth it. It's not worth it. If you were in the league today, would you contemplate maybe sitting out, or would you definitely play her?
Look, I'm going to give you a Bennie Blades story.
All right.
Okay? And it'll sum up who I am as a man even today. Now, we had played, I forget who we played that Sunday. I came down that Sunday night with a cold. It ended up on Tuesday being the flu. I didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday. The coach called me up on Thursday night. He said, it don't matter. You're going to play on Sunday. You know, I went through walkthroughs, you know. Back then, you know, it's called a COVID mask. But back then, you know, I was all bundled up just for walkthroughs on that Friday because it didn't matter. They knew Bennie Blades was going to play, and we played in Green Bay that day, and the temperature was in the 20s. So can you imagine? I was shivering on the sidelines. It didn't matter. They knew I was going to play. I mean, I tell people, even when my back goes out now, from all of the hits from over the years, I still go to work. People say, are you nuts? I can barely walk, but it's just something about me. I don't, if I'm earning a dollar, I want to earn that dollar. You know what I mean? I don't want people to say, oh, I'm giving him money. He's not doing anything for it. That's not the type of person I've grown up being, and I never be that person.
That's the thing I always say. Like anytime I'm driving on the highway and I see that one exit that hasn't been done in like 6 years, I'm like, what are they doing? I know they're just chilling. I'm like, why is it always backed up right here? So
because
everybody's got one. Everybody's got one of those exits on the highway.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But look, and you speaking of that highway, because I see it all the time, especially down here in South Florida. They'll tear up a road, and for 6 months that road is broken. And you look and you always see at least 20 of them. Oh my gosh, they're getting paid no matter what. So hey, you know what I mean? They don't care.
And then they say we need it done by tomorrow, and it's done before they leave. It's like it's wild. It's honestly, everybody's got one of those roads or one of those exits or a bridge or something. I remember we had a bridge right near my house that took them like 6 years to build, and then it didn't do anything. And then like in 2 months it was done. I'm like, what were you doing all this time? I can't hate it. That's wild. So I have a question. What was your draft process like? Did you know you were going to be a top pick?
Well, let me tell you when I found out I really was going to be a top pick, because I just came off of being the Bob Hope Christmas for the second year in a row. You know, it's All-American. And, you know, when you go to the combine is always just that. It's a combine. I didn't run at the combine. I didn't do any workouts at the combine. And so a lot of teams were like, no, well, who's this kid think he is? You know, and I was like, well, if you turn on my tape, you'll know exactly who I am. And so when the Oakland Raiders, who I really, 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 really love, said, well, they flew me out. I had a couple of small chip vertebrae in my neck from childhood. And so they said, well, no, you know, and I think at that time they had the 7th pick in the draft. Well, no, they kind of soured other teams on drafting me because they put a bad physical out on me. And then, so the Atlanta Falcons passed on me. They had the 1st pick in the draft. Then the next pick was the Kansas City Chiefs, and they already said they were going defensive end, and Neil Smith was everybody's guy at that, you know. So I was like, man, I might end up being freaking like the 20th pick of the draft, you know. Nobody's calling me, nobody's talking to me. So a week before the draft, Wayne Funk comes down. But he was coming to, South Beach, just to hang out on South Beach. I mean, come on, we're talking about South Florida. So he comes over to the University of Miami. He never works me out. He stayed for about 30 minutes just looking at film. And then he goes, we'll see you draft day. Like, whoa, I'm not going to get drafted here. Nobody's really talking to me. And so when draft day came, and sure enough, with the third pick, the Detroit Lions picks, I'm like, are you kidding me? That's why you can see all the pictures. I was just like, because nobody took me serious, you know what I mean? Because I just thought, okay, they went back to an old injury that I had since youth league football. And I mean, since then I played high school ball, I played college ball, and nobody talked about that. But, that's how it is. They put knocks on you because, they just didn't want anybody else to draft me, and they wanted me.
Yeah,
but I'm so happy that I got drafted by Detroit.
Were you like, damn, I got to tackle Barry Sanders multiple times a week in practice? Like, this is going to
No, you know what's fun about it? Because I get to tell people now, because everybody knows who Barry Sanders is. Yeah. No matter where you go, everybody knows who the number 20 is. And I says, no, let's get the story straight. I didn't play with Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders played with me. I got drafted the year before, right before him, okay? We just happened to suck, and we happened to pick the best running back in the draft.
First time you saw him play, were you like, oh, this kid, he's different?
No. The first week of practice, okay? This guy was so smooth in how he just went about. He was like a gazelle. He hopped from one spot to the other spot, and he was 100 miles an hour. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? And me and Chris Spielman, William White, we used to look and say, this kid is going to be special in the National Football League. Playing at OSU behind Thurman Thomas, people really didn't get who Barry Sanders was. Even right now, I'll go and watch tapes, and I want to watch myself, but I end up watching how great this kid really was. And I tell people, records are always meant to be broken. In my opinion, the greatest of all times, I'm not talking about yardage, it's the great Jim Brown, and then there's Barry Sanders. Because Jim did in 8 years what it's taking these guys to do in 10 plus. And he's still number 5 on the all-time in 8 years. So you can throw out all the the years and all the yardage. It's Jim Brown, and there's Barry Sanders.
I remember they were asking Emmitt Smith. They said, "You're first all time in rushing yards. Who's the greatest running back of all time?" He said, "There's no question, it's Barry Sanders."
Right. But only reason I have to say Jim Brown, because Jim Brown played in the era where they didn't count the playoffs. They didn't count. None of those yardages counted. Okay? And so even the greatest Barry Sanders, his dad said, "I love you, son, but you'll never be a Jim Brown."
I have a question. Who in your whole career, who's the toughest player to tackle? Not named Barry Sanders.
No, oh Jesus. Actually, it was a little small kid, Mr. Brooks, out of the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh. Smallest. Yeah. Look him up. Now, he wore the number 21, small in stature, and it was so hard to tackle this young man. Okay? And people always say, man, why do you always used to give you guys fits? Go back into the 80s, look up number 21. Yeah, do your homework.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. I got James Brooks.
Yep. Now, people talk about Christian Okoye back then, talked about Barry Ward. They talked about Otis, and they talked about all these guys who are NFL greats. I didn't take anything from them. They were great, but they were easy to tackle because big guys like myself, it's easy to tackle another big guy. It's head on head, you know, you don't have to worry about it. But when you get a small guy and you're big, his helmet is always up underneath your helmet, no matter what angle you come from. So it's always hard to get that good hit on him. And so I would tell people, you know, you can line me up against a big guy all day long. I love that. But those small guys, especially Mr. Brooks, I mean, he was a nightmare for me, a total nightmare. I tell people all that, you can line them all up, but I don't want to see him. He was a nightmare.
Now I was talking to Rod Woodson a month and a half ago, and I said, "Who's the toughest receiver you've ever covered?" And I expected him to say like Jerry Rice or Michael Irvin or Chris Carter, and he said Webster Slaughter. I'm like, oh. It's interesting. It's wild. Yeah, I see why guys have so much trouble with Tyreek Hill now because you can't catch him.
Right. You know, that's the thing. People will never, even if Tyreek Hill, people will never put him in the category of Devin Hester. Nope. They'll never put him in the category as one of the greatest receivers to play the game. But he's probably the most resilient and toughest receiver that a corner never wants to face him, okay? Because when you have speed and athleticism, he can run past you, he can stop on a dime and catch a pass, and he can accelerate real quick. And people will say, 10 years from now, they'll say, well, who's the toughest receiver you ever had to cover? And people will bring his name up and they go, what?
Yeah. That's wild.
But that's just like what I'm telling you. When I bring up Mr. Brooks and he bring us Wesley Slaughter, they go, no, come on. Those guys aren't Pro Bowlers, but they're the toughest.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have a question. Do you think Chris Spielman doesn't get enough? He's kind of underrated in terms of all-time great linebackers?
Well, here's the thing I'm going to say. If undersized, overzealous linebackers who've ever played the game, he's at the top, along with Sam Mills and all the rest of those guys, okay? But here's the problem I tell people all about the Hall of Fame votes. Because you haven't been on a winning team and you're not, quote unquote, a Barry Sanders of the world, people kind of overlook you. Well, if he was so good, why wasn't his team winning? And I have to always point out to people, it takes a team to win. You could be the greatest linebacker, the greatest running back, the greatest offensive tackle to ever have played the game. But if people don't know you, that's why I tell people, I love when I go places and I'm there with Ronnie Lott. But Ronnie Lott tells people, look, I just happened to play in San Francisco where my team was winners. But Bennie Blades is probably one of the most tenacious safeties who's ever played the game. And so when a player who's played your position gives you those accolades, it means more to you than when a fan says, well, no, their team sucked. And that's what I always have to hear my whole career. But your team sucked. I'm sorry, my team sucked. But you know what I mean? If James Lofton or, you know what I mean, Ronnie Lott.
One my father always brings up is Archie Manning. It was his Archie Manning was great, but his teams were horrible.
Yeah. And that's why he'll never get into the Hall of Fame. And which is sad because Eli might get into the Hall of Fame before his dad. And his dad had such a much better career than Eli.
It's crazy.
You know what I mean? It's like, are you kidding me?
So I have a question. In your opinion, who's the most tenacious safety in the game today? Even though it's not the same game, you can't really do as much. Who's the most intense, tenacious guy in the NFL today? In terms of safeties.
Man. See, everybody talks about name recognition. You know what I mean? I sit there and tell you a bunch of guys who have name recognition, but for me, when I look at the game, I look at the body of work that some of these guys have put in. And there's a kid who played down here for the Dolphins 2 years ago. And since then, who?
Fitzpatrick?
No, I'm talking about, Mika Fitzpatrick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's incredible.
And he's never going to get the notoriety. You know what I mean? Because why? He's played on a team. I just happen to live here. And so he's been traded away, and he's still having great years, but he's not on winning teams. And his body of work is there. But because he's not a Pro Bowler, he's not an All-Pro, and that bothers me, because people look at name recognition. That's not fair to the guys who are really putting in the work.
And speaking of that, with guys that don't have the name recognition, who are kind of being thought of, how shocked were you when Calvin Johnson didn't make the NFL 100 team?
Super. I was like,
that was the one. It stood out to me. I'm like, who's voting for this?
Look, how do you not put him in? How do you not? I always tell people, if you're gonna go even by eras, okay, there has not been a more dominant receiver from the late 90s to right now in the game than Calvin Johnson.
There was no
How do
debate.
you not put him in?
There's no debate either. Like, now they say, who's the best receiver in the game? And they go, DeAndre Hopkins. And somebody else will say Michael Thomas. And somebody else will say, DeAndre, or what do you call it? Like Tyreek Hill or Julio. It was always Calvin. There was no debate.
None.
Megatron. It's Megatron.
You know what I mean? And I would tell them, and I'm talking about, much as I love my Lions, when you knew he was going to get the ball,
of course,
90% of the passes is going to Megatron. Because there was no other receiver that stood up that made him not being double covered. And so that's the whole gist of that argument. This kid's been double covered, and you know he's going to get the ball. And he was still catching passes.
It's crazy. Every Thanksgiving, you knew he was giving you at least 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah. That's a minimum. It's wild. So I want to ask you about that. So what was it like playing on Thanksgiving every year?
Well, for me, it was my time to shine. I was saying, because when you're playing in a market that is not a big market, it's not a New York market, it's not a California market, you know, and so you go down on Thanksgiving. I know at least my mom is watching, my brother's watching in Seattle. Everybody around the country has to watch Bennie Blades from the U. I get to show exactly what I've been doing for the last 10 weeks. And it's, okay. He's still the same. He's still knocking the crap out of people. And that's what you get to showcase to everybody else who don't get to see you for those other weeks.
Did you just get used to it? Because you're probably used to, like, all right, spending Thanksgiving with my family, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, now you're playing. Did you just kind of get used to it, or what did you do? Did you eat that before? What do you do?
No. I'm telling you, that first year was rough for me. I was used to, okay, what do you mean we're playing on Thanksgiving? Thanksgiving is for turkey, sitting around, you know what I mean, and watching. I had forgotten that Detroit played every year on Thanksgiving. And so after that first year, it became a highlight of my career. Because like I said, that first year, we went 2-14. So that was horrible. I was like, I don't want people to see me on Thanksgiving.
You guys went on Thanksgiving that year, or was that not one of the games?
No, that wasn't one of the games. So it just got to the point where we just said, you know what? Myself, Chris Spielman, Jerry Brown, Norman Brown, Kevin Glover, Barry didn't have to say anything, you know what I mean? But when we went to the captain's meeting, that's how we built our nucleus of our team, because of guys like that stepping up saying, you know what, in order for us to win, we got to make sure that we do our job and we do it abundantly. And a lot of times you had to speak out for guys who were getting the shaft, because I used to tell people the only way our secondary is going to be great, I mean, we had to draft guys like William White, Ray Crockett, Melvin Jenkins. We had to bring these guys on board because Bennie Blades couldn't do it by himself. I mean, literally, I could have 16 tackles. Chris Spielman can have 17, and you still lose the ball game. That's way too many for two people. So you had to bring along people that had that same mindset and saying, hey, look, we want to win. Let's share the load. And so until we start getting guys like that, they have like minds, that's when we started winning.
Do you think Jeff Okudah's got one of those like minds?
Well, of course, William White, I just spoke to him last week. He said this kid is going to be phenomenal in that secondary because he has an attitude as a winner. And when you have an attitude as a winner, you hold everybody else around you accountable. And so even as a rookie, I mean, he's going to go in there, you know, with the mindset and say, hey, look, at Ohio State, we won. So we ain't taking nothing less. We ain't going into the season thinking about being 4-12. No, that's not what we're going to do. Mediocrity does not come into my brain. So if you're thinking about being mediocre, don't come in the locker room, baby. And that's gonna have to be his mindset from day one. When they step on the field next Sunday, he's gonna, you know, be very boisterous. Hey, look, man, you know, you ain't living up to your end of the bargain over there. If I'm locking down my corner, you gotta lock down your corner. And that's how it has to be. You have to challenge each other while you're out there.
Yeah. So I have a question. So how did you get it? So now you're one of the new co-hosts of the Believe in Lions podcast. How did you get into that? What made you interested?
Well, by being a true, I tell people all the time, I have been a diehard Lions fan even after I retired. I just, you know, I hate to say it, I just believe in the Lions, you know, and playing there, loving them, growing up a Raiders fan, and now cheering for the Lions, being in South Florida, and that's all you hear. Benny, the Lions haven't won since you played there. The Lions haven't won a Super Bowl since 1950-something, and you're still cheering for those suckers? You have no idea. Every year, I keep saying, we're going to be 11-5 or 12-4, 11-5 or 12-4. We're going to win the division. And I keep believing it every year until they prove me right or prove me wrong. It's either way, I'm gonna go down with the ship. And so when this opportunity came to talk about my Lions, I said, hey, why not? Because you guys spell it B-L-E-A-V, but I've been believing in the Lions for freaking years. And so when it fell in my lap, I said, it's a match made in heaven.
Awesome. So, I've been hearing a lot of hype about the Lions this year, and I never hear hype about the Lions. Does something feel different this year?
It really does. I don't know if it's the pandemic talking.
Yeah. No, because like on defense, nothing really stands out to you. The offense, I think, really hasn't performed. They've got an incredible group of guys.
Yeah, they keep talking about that, but I'm telling you what's selling me on the Lions this year, because Mr. Decker, they just gave him a brand new 5-year extension. Okay? So if you're gonna keep believing in this young left tackle, he's got to prove that he's worth every dime of that $85 million. You understand?
Yeah.
And so I always tell people games are won at left tackle and along your defensive line. And we've stocked up on defensive linemen this year. So that's why I think it's really making me believe that the Lions are going to be something special this year. If we can keep Matthew Stafford upright We got it, baby. We're going to win that division.
You think Galladay's got what it takes to be #1 receiver?
Well, I just think, you know what I mean, he's proven that, you know what I mean, he can step up, but he, you know what I mean, I really think he's going to need somebody else to kind of burden some of that shoulder away from him.
Marvin Jones is phenomenal, so.
You know, Marvin Jones is your big play guy, but you're gonna need one of those crafty guys, you know, like Amendola. You're gonna have to keep him around and teach these guys. Somebody's gonna have to be that, you know, I call those crap stirrers. They do all the dirty work.
Did you like that Adrian Peterson signing?
I loved it. You know, I loved it because people say he's getting long in the tooth, but it's the same thing as Frank Gore.
Frank Gore's 63. He's still playing. Come on.
Right. Yeah, look, but he's from the U. Different breed. Breed.
I saw that his kid was playing last week on national TV. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Frank Gore might outlast him in the league. No.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? But, you know, if you keep those guys and you give them their basic 15 and 16 carries per game, they'll last another 2-3 years because they're not shouldering the whole burden of trying to get 150, you know what I mean, 160 yards a game. You know, if they still have the ability to pop one, it may not go for the distance, but if they pop one for 30, 40 yards, it lights a fire up under these young kids. I'm not gonna let this old guy outdo me. And you know, it's that, you know, that bravado that you need in the locker room, and those guys get that to them. Who would have thought the Buffalo Bills would be in contention last year? But what? You bring in a Frank Gore, and he showed those guys what it takes to win. And that's what it takes. It takes an old veteran to show these guys. I mean, Detroit didn't have any running backs that were going to set the league on fire. I mean, you bring in a veteran who's going to show him what it takes to be an ultimate veteran.
I just drafted DeAndre Swift in fantasy, so I'm hoping for a big year because I was watching some of his highlights from Georgia.
Look, I love that kid at Georgia. Yeah. You know, I loved him, and that's why I said I'm just hoping Adrian Peterson can really show him the game and how to take care of your body. When the season is over with, all of those things play a part in veteran leadership.
Now, it's also like, because everybody's saying Minnesota is like the favorite to win the division. I don't think anybody on the Lions wants to beat Minnesota more than Adrian Peterson. So,
of course.
So I think that's why they signed him. So, yeah, you'd be like, what do we do? What do we do here? But that's really all the questions I really had for you. So I just wanted to thank you again for chatting for a little while. And then how can people find you on social media to follow and keep up with you? Well,
you can always, matter of fact, I want people to go and follow me on Facebook. You can go to the 2-minute warning with Bennie Blades. Please follow me there. Or you can go to my Instagram and you can follow me, Bennie Blades, on like I said, Instagram. And of course, follow me on my Believe podcast. I love talking about my Lions.
Hey, that's awesome. Well, this has been a blast, man. I can't wait for the season to start. We need football. I'm not watching any more Korean baseball. I was watching that for way too long. I don't know anybody's name. I can't buy any of this stuff. It's on at 1 o'clock in the morning. That was a dark time. That was a dark time when you watch Korean baseball at 1 a.m. But it's been a lot of fun, man. So I wanted to thank you again.
Well, I tell you what, make sure you tune in also next Thursday. Not right after Believing. Look, you have to believe in Bennie Blades, the Believe podcast in the mornings, okay? And then you got the 2-minute warning with Bennie Blades, okay, that evening. And then my Miami Hurricanes come on right after that. So next Thursday for me is going to be a big day.